You look wonderful. Here's my new system.
No, you were doing it for a second. I thought you were just threatening me.
It's my poke and stick for my camera.
That's amazing.
Then I don't have to lunge at you anymore. There we go. Okay.
Okay.
I'll try not to be distracted by little baby me over in the corner. So I just had a meeting today. It was on camera, and I asked questions, and they give me answers. And I realized I was doing that thing where I would ask a question, and I would be very like this, and then they would start answering, and I'd be like, mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting.
That happens for me all the time when I'm doing shoots and stuff, because obviously I shoot all the YouTube stuff. So I do like all of this and talk with people and stuff. And then I have my spicy forbidden shit. And whenever I'm doing that, I'll often be like talking directly to the camera like this. And then you'll see my eyes start to drift, because often I'll be in cosplay or something. And I just start to go like, oh, wow, I like that. And like just talking to, you can just see my eyes like, ooh.
Well, you put all that effort into being hot, and so then you're on camera and you're like, hey, it worked. Look at me.
Look at that.
Look at this. This is working.
Amazing.
I don't mind it.
Yeah.
Okay, I just decided to sound like a robot to myself. It's the only way to not feel muffled.
Okay, so you'll just survive through.
I feel like I sound really stupid right now because I can hear myself muffled, but honestly, very few things can stop me from talking. So we will probably be fine.
Plus, it's technically your own voice. So
the transition that I went through a long time ago was hearing my own voice when I speak, and then thinking that I sound like Batman, and then hearing it played back on a recorder, and
you're more like Robin.
Like I was a Muppet. Like how was everybody doing today? And I was like, that's what I sound like. And people were like, you don't sound like that. And I'm like, how are we both listening to an objective recording and you're saying I sound different than I hear? What's going on? But,
God. What's even worse for me is that I've got 15 years of documentation. So it's really hard for me to go back and listen like to this version of my voice, especially early on.
Mm-hmm.
I always get reminders, and they're like, here's what you were doing a year ago. And my studio looked completely different back here. But it was like, oh, look, here's your first like early YouTube video. And I listened to my voice, and it sounds like I was smoking. Like it sounds, which to my credit, I suppose, doing this more and more has made my ability to do more femme sounding easier. But that was that was a lot. So I appreciate the effort. I'll just say that's the real reason that I've just been talking with you, is so that you improve my feminine sounding voice.
You're going to start using those feminine wiles. You got to train the wiles to use the wiles.
And I've also been finding like a balance point where obviously when I'm talking with you, more energy and excitable. It's just the difference between talking at a blank camera and no one around me, and then obviously like interacting with you as a human being. So very different, but yeah, I can hear it in my voice.
Can I ask you about that actually? Because
sure.
I've been, as you know, tinkering with the idea of doing a YouTube channel of my own. And the only YouTube stuff that I have done has either been full production with film crews and cameras and telling stories, or I've appeared with other people. And I haven't actually ever recorded a video where it's just me talking to the camera. And one of the things that concerns me about that is that when I'm talking to another person, it's pretty easy to keep my energy up. And I don't know what the challenge is for keeping your energy up or making yourself seem not authentic, but like organically improvisational when it's just you. That might even be my concern more than the keeping the energy up. Although I think that's true. Keeping the energy up is a concern of mine. And then the other part of it is when I'm talking with you, or when I used to have a different YouTube show, the other person's energy was all I needed to get improv-y and say things I wasn't expecting. And I'm going to be by myself if I start my own YouTube channel. And I'm like, I'm not nervous about it, but I'm like, I wonder how that's going to go. So like, what's your experience there?
You do something first that doesn't matter or isn't as important. That's the thing that
Listen, honey, everything I do is important, so jot that down.
Well, that's going to be harder for you then to get into this pattern. I just start talking kind of like before I even sit down, like when, example, doing this, I literally was like talking to myself the whole time and just kind of even feeding back myself and even like I'll be like, oh, setting up the camera. Oh, yep. And like a call and response to myself. And then the main trick I have found is, since I know that everything is going to be edited anyway, during the video itself, I will like critique myself. I will also make fun of myself, or I will allow myself to laugh at how dumb what I'm doing is dumb. And so it like reinvigorates me. Yep. And part of that is just, what's the trick? It's like flow, before I say words to you, I'm having to kind of process them and get them out. When I record my own video on my own, I just stream of consciousness. I just never stop talking. And that
never stop. And then you edit it together later?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you then heavily edit, or do you edit more like how you've edited our stuff, which is just like the natural flow and you don't have to chop it up a bunch?
I actually heavily edit. I really enjoy editing, so I don't mind doing it.
I mean, that we both do. Like, that's kind of where we live in a lot of ways. So that's good to know.
So I'll cut out like half. Like I'll do here's an example. I just did the Tumblr video that folks will probably see before this one that came out on Christmas Day.
I saw it. It was great.
Yeah. And I think in total, that was an hour and 20 minutes
of recording time.
And it'll likely be like 38 minutes long.
That's like 40% of what you recorded. It gets on, maybe 35% gets into the video.
Yeah. So if I ever wanted to do the Zack Snyder bullshit, I'd be like, here's the extended version of these videos.
Which will include you being like, you stupid idiot, and all that other stuff.
Yeah, or like laughing at my own jokes. Honestly, it's mostly like, you'll see me laugh at dumb things, and then it cuts. And the reason it cuts is because I probably laughed for like another 60 seconds, as well as just told myself, like, what am I doing? And I keep some of that just because some of it's funny. But if I kept all of it, I think folks would just be like, yeah, she's lost her mind. What is she doing? It's just, that's why I can do the Gollum Smeagol impression so well. It's because that just lives. That's just how my existence is at all times. So
that big little cribbling in the corner. So if like 30 or 35% of what you record by yourself is what makes it into a video, how does that compare to one of the videos that I am a guest on? Is that like a lot? Is it about the same ratio?
Well, here's no, not even remotely. So you're a lot less full of fluff, as well as I don't go on as many tangents or just start talking to myself, I suppose. So example being like our trans imposter syndrome video, which, by the way, everyone, thank you. That did really well. I was really, really excited to see all the comments on that. It was incredible interactions. But I think that one, when we recorded it, was maybe like an hour and 12 minutes. And I think it ended up being an hour. It was 12 minutes shorter, basically. And most of that 12 minutes, I think, was like when we took a break or like walked off to grab a water or something along those lines.
Stuff like that.
I if whatever you say, I'm keeping in, so don't say anything,
no.
hypercritical. It stays.
Yeah, I'm just curious because that's good for me to know. I bet you if I was going to edit something that you and I were doing together, it would probably be pretty similar. Most of it would stay in. And then I could also see myself recording by myself with nobody else, and then having it be most of what I'm saying doesn't make it in because I'm either yelling at myself or I don't know how many inner voices that you have, but I have my conscious experience voice, and then I have kind of like two narrators in my head, kind of like constantly fighting back and forth. And so when I'm by myself and I'm editing or I'm working on a job that I don't like in marketing sense, like doing graphic design, I'll talk to myself as I work, but there'll be like the version of myself that's talking to myself, and then there'll be my inner monologue, and then there'll be the other one taking pot shots at me, which is sometimes in my head and sometimes out loud. So I'll interrupt my train of thought just narrating what I'm doing like a video game streamer, but it's while I'm making graphic design stuff, and every once in a while I will literally interrupt myself to yell at myself about the dumb thing that I just
there you
said.
go.
So I don't know.
Just turn the volume up on all of them all at once, and then just spew it out. And then just never show the footage you're recording to anyone, and you'll be fine.
Ever.
That's the trick. Drag and drop right to the trash. and then there's no problem.
No one will ever know. Because I feel like I'm and I don't know if I'm actually going to do my own YouTube channel, but if I do, I've been thinking about it lately, and there are two people that I don't want to end up being like, because they're other people. They're not me. And one is Any Austin. I don't know if you watch Any Austin.
Oh my God. I how have I not talked to you about him? Because I literally am about to probably make a YouTube video that's just like why you should watch Any Austin. It's just going to be me talking about how much I love his channel.
Okay, so how long have you been watching Any Austin? Because the thing that I want to talk about. Okay, me too. This is weird. We haven't talked about this. So in the last, I don't know, year and a half, maybe 2 years, maybe 3. I don't. Time for me is the other day means anything from a month ago to 17 years. But he started doing more on a green screen with a microphone, talking about unemployment or odd spaces. Oh, I love that stuff. But I've been watching since Eggbusters. I don't know if you have.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So Eggbusters is kind of the thing that I'm like, okay, that's what I don't want to fall into. Not because it's not good. I love Eggbusters. I've even watched a lot of it more than once. So the one way to not fall off is Any Austin, and he'll just be like talking, and then he'll be like, that was stupid. What am I doing? What am I doing with my life? Should I even be doing this? I don't know. And I don't feel like that's quite me. And but that's more me than the other one that I don't want to do, which is Hank Green. Because here's my Hank Green impression. He just keeps doing this to keep everything going. But I don't want to end up. I don't want to end up in Green territory either.
No, that's always the danger of becoming that vocal. Like I can totally tell my energy levels are completely different in a good way though. But I that's something I'm very much trying to monitor and keep in mind is like the Flandersization, I suppose.
Yes, becoming a parody of yourself or whatever.
Yeah. But
I'm old. We just talked about how you can't see as much of my gray on this new camera, but like just doing that Hank impression made me feel like I threw it on my back.
I keep, well, speaking of gray, like I think I've mentioned this before. Maybe folks don't know this on stream. I get a lot of asks like, how expensive is it for me to dye my hair the way that it is my natural hair is dyed? And I it's just gray, everyone. That's the trick, is that stressful life. So
natural hair color?
Yeah.
It looks great.
Thank you.
I thought I never looked at it and I was like, she must be doing something to it. But I was always like, oh, it's really cool looking hair. So that's neat that you just get that as a bonus.
My grandma turned stark white at like 19. So I got those genetics, But before I move on to more about talking how old I am, which I'm done talking about. That's why I'm bringing this up. I'm like, oh, by the way, let's go back to the thing about not my age. Any Austin, I started watching Eggbusters, and then he is. This is another reason why I want to talk about him on the channel. And like, I just really just want to be like, here's why I love the channel. And most of it's just me talking about nostalgia and how he harnesses that really well. But he did a lot of videos on Majora's Mask. Which,
I love Majora's Mask.
Majora's Mask is my favorite Zelda thing ever. And so when I was looking up a bunch of stuff for Majora's Mask, because I'll just get into those fits. I have a Majora's Mask literally sitting right here. I'll take a picture so I can put it right here. It just watches me the entire time I'm here. And his videos on that, just like, just so good. I love Majora's Mask is like the best Zelda, I think. And I'll probably make a video about that at some point too. But I got hooked on him after that. I
think Majora's Mask is my favorite Zelda game. I think that's true. And I think that it's one of my top whatever video games. I can understand the arguments of Breath of the Wild. I love Breath of the Wild. Very good game, but there is just something about Majora's Mask. It's so dark and sad and beautiful and ethereal, and it doesn't make any goddamn sense. And I just love it.
And it's like limitations equating to something incredible, because they're like, you have to reuse all the assets. Like, what are you going to do? Are you going to do some boring retread, or are you going to just completely destroy childhoods in a dark way? And I was a big fan of that. And then, like, obviously coming off Ocarina of Time, but
yes, and not to complain too much about Tears of the Kingdom, because I did like Tears of the Kingdom. Although, to be perfectly honest, Tears of the Kingdom was weird for me. First of all, I maintain that it is not a video game. It is just the biggest and most expensive DLC of all time, but I just kind of mean that as a joke. But I was more hopeful for something else. By the time I was done with Tears of the Kingdom, I was really exhausted by it. And now I'm worried I won't want to play Breath of the Wild again because of the stuff in Tears of the Kingdom that's so improved. But I also don't think I want to play Tears of the Kingdom again because I found it kind of exhausting by the end. But here's my complaint, and it's barely a complaint. It's barely a complaint. But so you have, what is it? You have the SNES version, A Link to the Past? A Link to the Past?
The original one?
For the SNES.
Oh, yes, Link to the Past, yeah.
Okay, Link to the Past. And so then I know it's not the same engine, but relatively speaking, the direct sequel to that is Link's Awakening, and Link's Awakening is fucking bonkers. And I really like it because it took a lot of risks. It kind of reused some assets. It did some stuff they couldn't do before. It kind of like, it did something completely different. And then in Ocarina of Time, the only other direct sequel was Majora's Mask, and Majora's Mask just went on a completely different direction. And so for Tears of the Kingdom, I was like really hoping we were going to have something kind of weird and different and bonkers. And I'm not criticizing the game, but we did not get that. And I wish we had.
Yeah. Well, my problem with Tears of the Kingdom is that they spend the entire, look at me being critical of like a renowned video game. This is not me really complaining about the game as much as it is talking about how horribly I play video games. And folks have always been like, oh, you should stream and you should, and I'm like, yeah, you say that. And then you'll watch me play. Like I've had friends invite me over when they get new games and make a party of watching me play, like in the room, like touching grass in the real world, because I just don't do it right. And here's an example. Like I played that entire game because they're like, you can do anything, you can craft anything, you can approach any situation how you want, and super freedom for that. So I just chose to never do combat like with my sword ever. I just never, and not even like arrows. I would just avoid conflict pretty much. And then just if I had to, it would be like, oh, I'll awkwardly throw this giant thing at someone and smash them. And so you can play the whole game, shockingly, and do everything you need to do. But at the very end, you get to Ganondorf, and they're like, by the way, all those blade skills you acquired, that's all you have to do during this chunk of the end game. And I hated that game at that point because I went from having fun and spending hours to spending hours being like, holy I am terrible. I am terrible at this. And so like,
you didn't have a learning curve on that. You had a learning cliff straight up.
Yeah.
You had to go from not doing it to being the master of it.
Yeah. And I kept looking around like, where's my dumb objects I can throw, or like, what can I, and in that particular part, it just was like, no, you have to apply this knowledge. And I just didn't do it. So I think I spent, and this is an awful thing to admit, I think I spent 6 hours not defeating Ganon or Ganondorf over that whole chunk, just specifically the sword fight part of that fight. And I think I still cheated. I think I had to like go back, and I think I just like acquired a bunch of just like bomb arrows or something, and I just did that. I was not a swordsman. That was just not gonna happen. And that kind of honestly annoyed me a little bit, because that game is the whole time is like, it's so free and you do this, except for this one part where you have to only do it in this way to progress. So yeah, that kind of like, I think, tainted the experience at the end, where I was just like, I hate this game now. Because it just made me realize, like, am I bad? Am I terrible at games? And the answer is,
are you a bad gamer?
Yeah, I think I am.
Yeah. Yeah, no, by the end of that game, I was also just annoyed by it, but not for non-sword reasons, but kind of similar, actually. I didn't like how bottlenecky it was, and like it was all so free and open, and all of a sudden you just had to play an old school Zelda game. Mm-hmm. Which is fine, I guess, except it's just not how I was playing.
Yeah. It kind of switches it towards the end to be like, well, if you want to finish it, just play it completely differently than how you've been playing it.
And I guess there's an argument there if you want to finish it. It's not like you have to. You can just, there are lots of people that never finish Skyrim, that never finish Dark the Wildest is the Kingdom.
God,
just pick flowers and do their own thing.
Speaking of Zelda, do you see the movie they're making?
Oh my God. Those leaked photos?
Yeah. Were those leaked or were those actually production? Do you know? They
were production stills, as far as I know, that were leaked early. I think this is my understanding, is that Nintendo released a statement the day of or the day after or whatever, very soon after those leaked, and then they appeared online, and they said something about, and it sounded like ChatGPT wrote it, frankly, although that might have just been translation. It was just like, hey, we promise this is going to be a good movie. We're working really hard on it. Like, please don't worry. Like, that was the kind of vibe of it. And it's because I think we were dragging it all across the coals because everybody decided to take a pot shot.
Yeah.
At those pictures.
It was pretty rapid. It was just like, it was pretty funny and mean in a glorious way. I think it's just, how long now have they been threatening to make this movie?
My entire life?
Yeah.
I mean, when do you think they started really saying we're going to make a movie? Because like when I was in college, we were talking about how cool a movie could be. And I don't think there was a real threat of one then at the time. But then somewhere in the last 10 years, it was like, because I think they might have talked about so the glorious disaster that is the 90s Mario Brothers movie, just the absolute train wreck of a film, delayed any Nintendo doing anything for a really, really long time. And I think there might have been talk back then of maybe making one, and then it went away. And then I know they've been talking in earnest since the second, the Chris Pratt is Chris Pratt as Mario movie that came out that I liked against my will. I was very annoyed by my opinion of that movie because I didn't like it, but I also liked it. And it's just like, I'm annoyed by this. I don't like Illumination. I've never liked Illumination. That's a personal preference. If you like Minions, God bless, do your thing. But I've just never been a fan of that style, and I don't really like it in Mario. It kind of fits, but anyway, the second that movie made $1 million, what am I, Dr. Evil? As soon as it made a lot of money, they were like, we're making a Zelda movie. And at first, I thought it was going to be a Illumination movie. And as dumb as that was, or I shouldn't say it like that, but they said they were going to make a movie. I thought it was going to be an Illumination movie. And as much as I wouldn't personally like that, I was like, that's a safe way to maybe do a Zelda movie.
Yeah, especially with the characters and the fantasy elements. I did the same thing where I was like, that, if that's the route, it could work if done well and could be a possibility. But then they were like, oh no.
Then there were live action, and live action immediately made me trepidatious for a lot of reasons. But then when I saw the stills, I was like, oh great, the legend of mid as fuck. I was just like,
that's one of my favorite jokes I've ever made, because you inspired me when I saw your rant, is I said, oh, it's an Ocarina of Crime. And that's I was like,
I was so happy about that because I love being clever like that, but I was mad, and so I wasn't being clever. I was like a Link and Zelda in the CW Rings of Power spin-off, the Wheels of Time, but I spelled time like the spice. And then I think that's where you said the Ocarina of Crime, and I was like, oh, that's so good. That should have been mine.
I think also, as far as fan demand or fan screeching to the heavens for a Zelda movie, I want to say that really picked up steam around Ocarina of Time, because that also was the cinematics and the cutscenes and the way that presented. I feel like that built a a world and a feeling in which you could be like, oh, this can be a thing. So
that's a good point. I think you're right. I think you're knocking some stuff loose in my memory. And by the way, for the children out there, and by children, I just mean 25. That's my jealousy talking. You got to remember that when the N64 came out, and think in your mind for a second, if you've ever seen footage of an N64, right? The blocky, triangle, blurry, like, what is this? When we first saw that, we were like, graphics can't get any more realistic. That's basically a person, right? And so as soon as that happened, you start probably talking about, oh, well, if it works there, it can be a film. Basically every generation of graphics, it's like, graphics can't get any better. But I think it is hysterical that goes all the way back to the N64.
All the way back.
I think you're right.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that kicked off a lot of that. But yeah, and I just like, it's tough too. Like they work so well as games in which you're immersed, in which you're doing the puzzle solving. And there's that idea of like adaptation and how that would be done. And I feel like, I mean, you and I have probably always had an idea. It's fun to think about and be like, oh, this would be my version of Zelda. But part of that's also because it's like a challenge. Like it feels like there's so many ways you could try to do it, but it's not so direct. Like you look at something like obviously Last of Us or like the Uncharted movies, and I laugh because I'm like, you literally could just take what's there and put it on screen, but you're all are scrambling to find ideas and make this work. Whereas Zelda has always been this multiverse sprawling timeline with interconnected lore and so much going on.
I mean, depending on how you want to look at it, right? Besides the ones that are direct sequels, they're either not really connected at all, or they're connected in a weird, like multiverse, like reincarnation way. Like some of, like Wind Waker, I think was the one that really was like, everything has happened before and everything has happened again. Like we're fans of Battlestar 2, and now Link has this going on. And so it's like the hero of time keeps getting reincarnated and all of that stuff. But like, they're very standalone games. Like every once in a while on YouTube, I will see like a continuity of timeline of Zelda explained. And I'm just like, I would rather do anything than watch that. And I like Zelda theory videos. I'm a Zelda nerd. I don't know about you, but I've been playing Zelda since the first Zelda. I played the first Zelda, and I have been a massive fan of Zelda more than any other. I don't know what my favorite game is. I'm not going to say a Zelda game is the best game in the world or anything like that, but I've been a Zelda fan longer than I've been a fan of any other video game. Because like I played Mario Brothers, which was great. I liked it, but there's something about even that first Zelda game that you can go anywhere and you can do anything that you want. And I have been a massive fan of that franchise since. And I bought an N64 late. I skipped a bunch of generations, but I bought an N64 specifically to play Zelda. I bought a Wii specifically to play Zelda. I did not buy a GameCube. I borrowed a GameCube specifically to play Zelda. I bought a Wii specifically to play Zelda. I did not buy a Wii U, but I bought a Switch and I played, so like most of my video game Nintendo purchases is because it's the only way to play the Zelda game. And I wanted to play the Zelda game.
It's funny how similar that is. I think the only reason, honestly, that the Zelda games are the only games I ever got passionate about growing up. And I was in a similar boat where I was actually always like a full console and a half behind. So by the time people were about to give up the Super Nintendo, I was like, oh, the NES, finally in my house. And by the time I got a Nintendo 64, that was similar where they're like, oh, we're well into the GameCube era. So I was always like well behind, which was kind of fun. But like specifically anytime I got a new system or tried to get a new system or demanded one, it was because I was like, because I need to play the next iteration of this. Yeah. And I know like the Majora's Mask thing, all of my friends make fun of me because I'm so obsessed, and I bring it up all the time when it comes to like someone drops video games and I'm like, you want to hear about Majora's Mask and why I love it so much? Which I will make a whole video on where it's just me doing that. But even in my own household, I was like super into that game and like, oh my God. And everyone else just like close family in my house. It's like, we don't get we don't get why why are you playing that? None of us, like, they all like lost interest so quickly, and I just was like obsessed with it. So I constantly
me too.
on the lookout.
I don't know if it's ever come up for us. It probably hasn't, because otherwise we would have talked about how much we are obsessed with Majora's Mask before. But and also because you're not, like, broadly speaking, a horrible klutz, but if somebody in front of me like falls down or drops something, a lot of times without thinking, I'll just say, "You've met with a terrible fate, haven't you?" Like, and people will look at me like, "Why did you say that specific thing? It sounded like a," and I'm not gonna bother explaining.
Yeah.
No, it's just slightly different, but similar to you. I had an NES in the late 80s. When I was a little baby, and then I didn't have a single game console of any kind until I bought the N64 myself in 2001. So I skipped all of that. And then I had an N64, and then I didn't have anything again until the PS5, except for a computer. So I played Fallout 3 and New Vegas and Mass Effect and some of those things, but I skipped I don't have a strong connection with Halo or Pokemon, or it's just it's honestly it's Zelda is my only, like, because there are other games that I absolutely love, but they're either standalones or they're kind of new or they're whatever. But Zelda is my only, like, I'm obsessed with this franchise. Yeah,
to the point where when stills get released, you can actually look at it and be like, well, I have opinions, I have passion, and I have an understanding, and I also have, like, some disappointment that you're allowed to have after that long. Video game adaptations in general are crazy because they feel like such a long time for anything to happen with them. Like, they're always announced, and then they're picked up by a creative team, and then it's killed, and then the new creative team takes over that, and it just, like, goes through this, like, mesh, like, blender cycle for decades sometimes. Which
yes, that's
just
true.
Like, reminds me of, like, what they do with, I guess they do that with Star Wars now. Like, they're like, a Rey movie, it's coming, I swear. Or, God, Obi-Wan was 30 years or whatever the hell that was. Like, how long?
Yeah, threatening it forever, and then they made it an X-Men Origins Wolverine version of it or whatever. Yeah.
Wait, I need to ask you, because I was trying to, speaking of Obi-Wan, I was trying to tell a friend who was overseeing me last weekend, because we got on Star Wars for some reason, because who doesn't? It's everywhere. And I was trying to remember, and I need you to tell me the story again about your Obi-Wan Kenobi script, because I was trying to explain what you had done and what you had almost accomplished, and then I realized I knew more about the script. Yes, script. Look at I'm tattling on you, Tyler. But you almost started the ball rolling on a Obi-Wan thing. So I want you to tell me this story.
Do you want to tell that story? Okay. And then after I tell that story, do you want to do our pitches for how we would do a Zelda movie?
Oh, that sounds fun. Yeah. All right, stop. So Tyler's story about the Obi-Wan script is actually so good, but also so in-depth that I pulled it. I'm going to make it its own video. It's got intrigue, it's got mystery, it's got giant news organizations. It's just a really good time. But because this felt very Zelda heavy, we're just going to go right into our Zelda pitches, and I'm going to release that Star Wars video in the future if y'all want that. So let me know. It's a good story. I might not. I'm not involved in it at all. I didn't do anything. I swear. Anyway, back to past Ashley. Take it away. Speaking of varying opinions, the new Zelda movie is going to suck balls.
Oh my God. Is it ever going to suck?
Yeah, this will be fun because let's you kind of you pitch an idea, or would you want to talk about, like, what we think they're going to do?
Oh, well, okay. This is, I already talked so long for the Obi-Wan thing, but I'll try to make it a little shorter than that, because it's obviously not the story.
No, it's all good. Your Star Wars thing will become its own bit. You're making content for me. I think I'll just do that.
Yeah, so. That's fine. So I have had very clearly in my mind how to do a Zelda movie since 2003, I want to say. And it's not really wavered the entire time, although I do have new language to talk about it because I have grown as a filmmaker and also a bunch of stuff has come out. So there's something I'm about to refer to incessantly to compare this to how you would do it that wasn't out in 2003. It came out in like 2014 or whatever. But okay. So the more closer to the present that you get from 2003, the more solidified the nascent idea of this kind of became when I would talk about it because I'm like this, like I also have a pitch for how to do Highlander, right? Which we should talk about at some point because we're both Highlander fans. So I'm just like this, but I've been talking about how to do a Zelda movie since 2003, and it became particularly solidified after Breath of the Wild. Because I kind of started to hit upon this idea. And it was kind of back then, but it's always been here. Okay. So I brought up Mario Brothers as a movie and you brought up The Last of Us, right? But The Last of Us, like you said, very astutely, I think, is like already almost a movie. So adapting that into a movie is not a big deal. Mario, disaster in the 90s, but I love it. Mario in the 2020s, I think I wish it hadn't gotten made, but I don't know. I kind of enjoyed myself. I don't know. Illumination Studios, but most video game characters don't talk, right? Like that's just a thing. Like they're even if in Fallout, whatever, or in any Bethesda game, you'll click on what you say, but you won't hear what you say. Like it's, a fairly common thing not to have your character voiced. In Zelda and Mario, but we're talking about Zelda, Link doesn't speak. He never has. In my recollection, the weird Panasonic deal that they made somewhere in the 80s is the only time you've ever heard Link talk. And and then no, that's not true. There was that, and then there was a cartoon series where they had
Hello, Princess.
And so that's the only time Link has ever spoken, and that will remain true until this new terrible incarnation where Nintendo said that one of the most beloved franchises of all time should be honored by making everything as generic as fucking possible. Think of Terry Brooks on Seconal. Then he'll speak, I'm sure. But like my idea was to make all the way back then, my idea was to make a silent protagonist. So my idea for a Zelda movie, first of all, no slow motion, not a single moment of slow motion in the film. I still feel very strongly about this, but at the time we were coming off of The Lord of the Rings, and we could talk for 7 hours about my love of Lord of the Rings and Tolkien in general and the book I'm writing right now and how much I love those movies and how much I love the books and how much the movies inspired me to be a filmmaker, and they had all of those special features and all of those documentaries, and there was the extended editions with 12 discs, and there was like a period of my life where I could have had a t-shirt on that said bored, watch any one disc of Lord of the Rings. Like that's what we're doing today. I love the Lord of the Rings. I love those movies. I hate the Hobbit movies. I love the Lord of the Rings movies, but oh my God, is there so much slow motion in that? So part of it was reacting to the slow, like no slow motion, right? There's no slow motion in Zelda games. So let's not have any slow motion. And then that led me to kind of thinking, let's actually make a Zelda game that you don't play. So let's not have Link be a very vocal protagonist. In 2003, it was less absolute and just not make him talk very little. By the time you get to, a few years ago, I was like, okay, no, let's just never have him speak. Let's just never have Link speak. And there are two movies that have come out that kind of do this. One is John Wick, and the other is Sisu, which I don't know if you've seen.
Yeah.
You've seen Sisu. Okay, so we don't have to go over that too much. For those of you that don't know, Sisu is a film where the protagonist I think has one line at the very end.
Yeah, which I almost wish they hadn't even had, but it was
Me too.
Yeah, it was great.
Me too. It almost makes me want to recommend you a movie, but I don't want to tell you what movie because then you'll know that that's the thing in this movie and it's better to come as a surprise. So we'll loop back around later when we're not thinking about any of this, but I love that kind of stuff. Okay. Here's the idea, or like part of the idea. I'm not going to do beat for beat every single plot point, nothing like that. It would be way too boring to get into that technical level of detail. You and I could nerd out about that forever, but people will eventually draw stuff. Okay. There's this other thought. Okay. I'm sorry, this still makes me laugh. I've been playing all these Zelda games, and especially Breath of the Wild. I really started thinking about this. I think one day I was just like, I think Link is really dumb and a psychopath. Like, I just think he's stupid. He doesn't speak and he goes, bah, and that's it. And he kills everything. And also anytime everybody talks to him about anything, his reaction is just like, what? I got this. And he's just like a psycho. I just started thinking that was so funny. So the first time I played Breath of the Wild, I didn't really connect with it at the beginning. And then by the end, I kind of got it. And then kind of fairly quickly after that, I replayed it. And I was like, okay, this game is great. Everything I had a problem with, I was wrong. That was my thing. Just like episode 1, except it actually happened.
In reverse. Yeah.
And the second time I was playing it, I just started playing it like that. I wish I'd live streamed it, honestly, because I had friends over sometimes, and sometimes I was doing it by myself. But I was just like being a psychotic himbo. Like he's too stupid to understand anything, but people are like, hey, go in that direction and kill everything. He's like, okay, I know how to do it. So he just goes and he just destroys everything in his path. And so then that started to be really, really funny to me. And then it started to morph into my idea for a movie where you kind of have a silent protagonist. And I was like, okay, make him a completely silent protagonist. And so then I was like, okay, we got to make this a little bit funny, but also it's a Zelda game, so we don't have to make it too funny. There are a couple of things in Zelda games, and this is my personal preference, and so like some people, I'm sure you could disagree with this, and again, you're right, I'm wrong. There are a couple of kinds of humor that I just don't really connect with. So for example, there's nothing funnier to British people than men in women's clothing. There's nothing funnier to British people than like a cis man going in a wig, like, oh, ripping good laugh. Like they just, for some reason, they just fall to bits. And I don't find that funny. Like trans people can be funny. Like I'm not saying that. Like I just taking Monty Python people and putting them into clothing. Monty Python is very funny. And when they're dressed as women, they're being funny, but them dressed as women is not what's funny.
Yeah.
But in other British stuff, it's the whole joke.
That's the joke. Yeah.
And it's okay. So in a very similar way, not actually a similar way, there's no real sexism involved in this, but, or misogyny involved in this. There's a kind of humor in the Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild games and kind of some of the other ones too that I just don't connect with. And I think Japanese people think it's fucking hysterical to have a super competent protagonist that everybody undervalues and doesn't think is doing anything worthwhile. I think they just find it hysterical because so many jokes in those games are someone going, you're just an idiot, dumb, but fool. And like, we don't care about you. And no, someone's going to have to save us. It's not going to be you because you don't do anything.
I will back up your theory, because I know you personally don't watch a lot of anime, but there are a lot of plot lines in anime in which that is literally the case. And One Punch Man is on my mind right now because the newest season released and it's terrible. But the first amazing good season of that, like the first 2 seasons, are kind of just about a character that's undervalued, underappreciated, is the most powerful human on the planet, but is constantly and he doesn't really even want the fame, but like a lot of humor derives from the fact that other people are getting credited for it in a similar, or that like, oh, he's weak. He's not actually like a badass. And that's like the constant kind of joke in that series. So I will back up your theory that is, I think, an ingrained part of some of that humor.
And I like Japan. I really like Japanese cinema. We've both been to Japan. Like, I like Japan, but this is a piece of humor that I do not connect with at all. And in my head, it's kind of the same thing. There is a cultural thing that I am missing that if I had, maybe I would completely change my mind and be like, actually, I get why this is funny because there's a cultural component that I'm missing. But in my head, it's just someone's really, really powerful and someone's like, you're dumb. And the guy that's really, really powerful is like, you're right. And then he does something and then someone else gives someone else credit for it or whatever. And in my mind, every Japanese person's like, man is dressed as a woman. Oh my God. Like, it's just, there's something about that. So I don't find that funny at all. Then I started thinking about where you could bring humor in, and I started thinking about the expectations. Okay, long story short, back when I first had this idea, I wanted Ganondorf to be played by David Bowie. I don't know who would play Ganondorf now, but at the time it was David Bowie, and he was just a solidly sexy, badass David Bowie kind of motherfucker. By the way, in my Star Wars prequel trilogy reboot pitch, he was also Palpatine. So, like, I have a type, which is alien. And he was Ganondorf, not Ganon. And so the beginning of that movie is, but by the way, this part I had thought of all the way back then. And then by the time you get to Wind Waker, they were already doing it. Like, there have been heroes before, there will be heroes again. I was kind of like playing with that. In my mind, something like Ocarina of Time had already happened. But because Ocarina of Time happened the way that it did, everybody knows who everybody is, but you've reset to childhood or whatever, right? So like, you've saved the day, you've saved the threat, time travel, whatever. There's allusions to maybe something happening before in this movie. Okay. Ganondorf kills the king and kidnaps Zelda. And then in the prequel, the prologue part of this or whatever, you could do the Triforce or you could do some other MacGuffin. You could hide them in dungeons. You could do all of that stuff as kind of setup. That Zelda hid the pieces of the last part of the Triforce because Ganon had one and she has another one, so she's been captured, and so the one of courage got split up. You could do that. You could do it's all in one location, but you need these 4 scrolls to get it. You could do whatever like that, but to include dungeons and have a motivation for why you do it. But kidnaps the princess and is in control of everything, and then it shows Impa doing a thing, and now Link is here. And Link just shows up. Originally in 2003, 2004, I was like, let's make the clothing a little more realistic. Let's get some like Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves looking version of the Link attire. I don't know how strongly I would feel about that now if I actually got a chance to do something like this. But I do think that looking at the, I want to look at those photos real quick again to make sure that like looking at this, it's like these clothes look like anybody that's ever done cosplay has done better than this.
Yeah.
And also like I don't know, it just looks like 2 Calvin Klein models are constipated.
That is a thing. It's so funny because I think finally folks are starting to do the thing now where they're like, oh, any cosplayer can do better than this. But the insult for the longest time was like, what, are they wearing cosplay or whatever? And I always found that so funny and insulting because I'm like, have you seen the people who are like, no, you're thinking of people on Halloween. You're not actually thinking of cosplayers, because I have seen some insane shit. I can think of off the top of my head probably a dozen times that I have seen cosplay of Link or Zelda where I'm like, if you had just done that, that's cinema right there worthy. Like it's good. It's high def. It would like, it's so impressive. It's so good. It's so beyond what, honestly, there's been a bunch of examples of shows that have gotten churned out, and then we'll compare them, the costumes they use to cosplay, and the cosplay will just be infinitely superior. And this stuff looks like generic Halloween costumes. Oh my God. It's so
so bad. But
Yeah.
okay, anyway, Impa in this story kind of like either, and like, again, I never really solidified this one. Like the Star Wars prequel trilogy, I have written somewhere as treatments or whatever, but this was never, it was always nebulous, right? So I never really confirmed anything. Maybe it's that he was off adventuring somewhere else, or maybe that she resurrects him, like whatever it is. But now Link is here. Impa explains the situation to a guy clearly incapable of like understanding the nuance. Like he doesn't really get what's going on, but at the end, he's kind of aware the princess is in trouble and you have to kill everyone in that direction. And so he just goes, right? And then I'm just for a shortcut, insert in your mind a fantasy equivalent of Ganondorf getting the phone call where he learns that it was John Wick's dog that got killed. And it's just Ganondorf has won, and then someone comes and tells him that Link is now a part of this, and he's just like, oh, shit. And so the whole thing is a mad scramble to keep the most dangerous person that has ever existed from killing Ganondorf. And so like the movie then kind of like flips itself and becomes, there's a moment in Batman Begins that I absolutely love where all of a sudden Batman is almost a horror villain and everybody else is like the final girl trying to survive. And I've always wanted to see just a Batman movie like that. And so some of this movie would be like that, where you just have the people that work for Ganon and the Moblins and the whatevers and everybody, you know, just like terrified. This impossible, unstoppable dude is coming, and then have him show up and just immediately do what they were afraid that he was going to do. And then the fun part about this is, and again, I'll defer to Sisu on this. You know that guy is going to make it to the end of the movie. That's not what the problem is. Like, that's not where the fun comes from. It's like how he keeps getting into more and more impossible situations that he couldn't possibly get up. And then somehow he's just so badass that he does it. So in my version of Zelda, it would be there are some villages and they're under threat. There are probably some secondary characters. You could make them Zora, Goron, Hyrulean, and the little elf guys that he comes from. And Ocarina of Time, I forget what they're called, but you could make them those different species, or you could make them not. You could do whatever, but like they're under threat by, and so you could tell like little bits of story there. But Link just saves them because he is an unstoppable psychopathic killing machine that doesn't understand what's going on. And I was even like, you should have people surrender to him, and he doesn't notice. Like he just keeps chopping things with a sword and like throwing bombs and like blowing up walls, and people didn't know there was a passage there. How did he know there was a passage there? But he just does it, and he's just unstoppable.
I like this take on it because it's just kind of a unique, like, and that's what I wish, like, if you're not going to sit there and do a direct adaptation, well, then just kind of do like your own thing or have fun with it, you know?
Just really swing for the fences, because like in those movies or in those games, he doesn't talk. Like, let's do that. Let's really do something with this and kind of make it funny. And the nice thing about this idea, like, let's say for some reason somebody gave me a chance to do this, you could do this. And if it was successful or unsuccessful, you could still do a more traditional Zelda movie after that. Like you absolutely could. And so then the other part of this that I was like, okay, so then as I was growing as a filmmaker during the, 20 years of thinking about this movie. And so I was like, okay, let's have some more stuff going on. Let's have Zelda also escape and give her some more agency and some more autonomy and all of that kind of stuff. And so then that led to, why don't we have Ganondorf and almost, I forget his name, and even if I remembered, I would butcher it. But the guy that did In the Loop and The Thick of It.
Yes. Yeah.
That guy, right? Almost have a comedy of errors side plot where Ganondorf is scrambling to find some sort of super weapon in the nick of time that can take Zelda or to take Link out. And so then Zelda escaping can be part of that madcap plot. And then I was thinking, at the end, when Link shows up to fight Ganon, you could actually have Ganondorf pull off I have actually gotten the super weapon, and it will knock Link out in one shot. So I'm actually going to win. And then you could have Zelda, Eowyn, Ganondorf at the last but kind of unexpected moment. And so she's the one that actually saves Link. And then he just continues. So he's like almost like, Father, please, Return of the Jedi, Star Wars. Well, like getting killed by Ganondorf or whatever. And then she stabs him in the leg or she stabs him in the back, or whatever. And then Link just gets back up perfectly fine. And then just like fucking eradicates. Like once that threat is gone, then you set up a big fight that Link just wins. Like it's just a beat down. Like finally, and I know I've said David Bowie, but like in 2003, he was young enough to pull this off. And whoever you get that would be kind of funny and effervescent and kind of like that, would that like be physically capable of doing this, but he pulls out a sword and Link's already got his sword, and then you do the thing and you do the Western stand-up. You have all of that build up and it's going to be the big epic part of the fight, and then you don't have that happen. They just come at each other and Link just stabs him and then just beats him down with like a club until there's like nothing left. Like my idea, like admittedly was fairly violent. And so most of the people who kills aren't humans, so you could probably get away with most of this. And so then I started thinking of really fun stuff. Like in my head, there would be a great moment for a trailer where you're in a dungeon or a cavern of some kind, and you've got a cliff face and like a endless gap, a bottomless pit, and it's 20 feet, separated, and like 30 feet, there's no possible way that anybody could ever do that. And then in the trailer, you have Link running, putting his sword away or whatever, right? Like getting ready. And then you in the trailer, you just see this like actually like this frame shot, if this is the thing, and you just see him go, and then you cut to like front on and you just see him land in that like traditional superhero pose, like boom, right? And then in the trailer, his sword and his shield like come out from behind him and become part of the logo. And we just say The Legend of Zelda or whatever. But in the movie, he does the same thing and it's a super badass thing. But instead of how it's portrayed in the trailer, the sound cuts out and he goes and he lands in that superhero pose and he stays there and he stays there and he stays there and he just goes, ah! Ah! And then he pulls out like one of the things like filled with healing juice and he drinks it. And then he gets up and he just kind of like stumbles on and he drinks another one, and then he's back to just fighting for him and just all sorts of things that you could do and like fun little trailer things. And then so anyway, the entire premise of this is like, let's go through all the Zelda games, find moments where he's an ultimate badass, but then do it in kind of a slightly underhanded or funny or silly subversive way without undercutting that he's a badass. Make everybody terrified of him, make him always come out on top, make Ganondorf's plan never was going to fail until Impa like resurrected Link or brought him back or whatever, and then everyone else spends the whole movie going, oh shit, oh shit, oh fuck, oh fuck, oh shit, we got, oh no, Link is coming. And then there's just more and more updates of like, he took down that castle, here you took down that dungeon or whatever, and again getting more and more mad. And then toward the end, I was even thinking, if you do a good enough job of this, then you have like 10 minutes before, Link shows up to confront Ganon and all that stuff we were talking about at the end. Like, there's just an army, and it's just like massive, like the engine, like from Lord of the Rings, just like 7,000 people in a battlefield, and then on the other side is like Link. That's it. And maybe like his 4 friends that look terrified. And then you have this like buildup, and then you cut to more of the oh shit stuff that's going on elsewhere. And then you cut back and they're just all dead. Like you do a good enough job of like making everybody do a good enough job from everything leading up to that point of how indestructible this guy is, that you just cut away from that epic fight and he just wins and like 7,000 people are dead and you don't bother to explain it, and he's just continuing to march on. And at that point, everyone is terrified, and then you can still have all the great stuff. You can still have Zelda have agency. You can still have the cool iconic moments from Zelda that you like. I don't want to get rid of any of those, but I want to have fun with it, because as soon soon as you make Link start talking, as soon as you try to have a coherent plot, I think this is going to fall apart no matter what. I'm sure there is a way to do a Zelda movie that I don't make that I would like. I'm sure that exists in the realm of possibility. But considering how like by the numbers almost that Mario movie was that came out a couple of years ago, and how generic all of this stuff looks, I just think we're gonna get Terry Brooks on sleeping pills, and I'm really disappointed.
Yeah, that is
so. Anyway, that's what
generic.
I didn't go into too much detail, but that's what I've been.
I love it because it's like a combo of like John Wick and Sisu, and I don't know if you know the Hyrule Warriors game, but the energy and the fun of that is.
Oh, I haven't played that actually. Is it good?
Yeah, it's fun. It's like a reskin of, I can't remember. I think it's Dynasty Warriors is technically what it is, which is just swarms and swarms of enemies and just kind of plowing through them. But that, if anything, is kind of a perfect example of like, oh, this could work, especially if you play it that way, because in that it's just like thousands of just watching Link destroy just thousands of soldiers in that way.
And of course, just like in Sisu and just like in John Wick, he also gets his ass kicked. Like bigger guys totally destroy him. You could do the thing where you set up antagonists like that are secondary to Ganon, and so he'll get into scraps and he'll almost die or whatever.
Yeah.
And like it'll just be like John Wick and Sisu, where it's like, how is this guy still alive? And by the end, he's bloody and he's fucked up and there's barely anything left of his clothes, and it looks like he's gonna die as soon as he does the last move the samurai will do, and then he'll probably expire. So he's not invincible. He's just John Wick. He's just Sisu. He's just unstoppable for no reason other than the sheer force of will.
Yeah.
I just think that's so fun.
And I like that idea of like doing a John Wick or a Sisu where it's part magic, like set within the world of magic, so that you can use that in ways that they can't. Like your example, which I love, like the way you're similar sometimes in writing, in like visualizing something and then kind of like crafting to get to that point. And the idea of like a Sisu where they can get to a point of being so beat up and then be like, okay, well, what magic thing do I have in my bag, or how do I like swallow this potion and move forward?
Exactly.
And be literally on the brink of death in a way that those movies can't do, only to be like continue on despite it all. Like those ideas could be really fun if incorporated in that way.
Like one example of this, and this is there's been silly versions and not silly versions of this. So I'll just tell you the most extreme silly version of it, which is okay. Everybody loves hating Navi. Because, hey, listen, just over and over again incessantly. So I wanted to put a fairy, I wanted to put fairies in this world, and just like in Zelda. And then I'll skip all the preamble. I wanted to have a moment where one of the big centaur dudes or one of the big ogres or whatever sticks a tree trunk, like all the way through his heart. Just like fucking kills him. And then rips it out. And then Link like drops to one knee and he's about to die. And the little fairy from earlier comes and goes, "Oh no!" And Link grabs it and eats it and is healed. And the guy's already turned around thinking he's won. So it's just all that kind of stuff would be so fun. Yeah. And you could structure it almost like a super bad movie in terms of just like things are silly, but structured really well. So they don't come out of nowhere. They're like really well set up and established. I don't know if you've watched The Chair Company.
Yes.
Oh my God. We should talk about that at some point, even just offline. Like, oh my God. The randomest stuff happens in that, but it's so meticulously set up in the same time that it's random. And so an element of that too. In my head, I know that movie would be so fun. And I think people that don't like Zelda would like it. I think people that like Zelda would love it. I think there'd be some people that wouldn't like it. But again, if you made a movie like that, whether it did good or bad, that would not step on making a movie like they're going to make. You could still then make one. This is almost like The Joker. I'm not endorsing that movie. I don't like it, but
structurally, the way it's embedded in the universe. Yeah.
And this one doesn't count. It's just kind of over here on its own. I
well,
would
and the universe
so
itself, as we said, is prone to it. I'll find the image. Here you go, everyone. Look at that. That's the supposed timeline of all of this series. It's a nightmare. So it's not, it wouldn't be unreasonable for that to happen. They would never make that movie, which is sad. Because just the imagination of like John Wick set within Zelda and go, or Sisu set within Zelda, go, have fun. Don't worry so much about like the self-referential like jerk off, like, oh, remember, like kind of undercut those in fun ways. I'd be down for that.
I'm not trying to defend Quentin Tarantino. Fuck that guy in most ways. But there was a moment where he was going to make a Star Trek movie, and everybody was worried about it. And his attitude, or other people's attitude about that is and again, I don't really want to see Tarantino, whatever, but similar kind of thing. It's just like, shut up. Who cares?
Yeah.
Like, you can just do this and have fun and have it not be connected to anything else, and then go back to doing the boring stuff that you were doing already.
Yeah.
Go ahead. But why not do a weird thing? Like, it's like photographs and everybody group photos, and that was a fun one. Like, why can't you do that for movies?
Yeah.
Let's just do a silly one. It's not going to connect to any
as
of
opposed to making like 3 Spider-Man movies, but they're all just technically the same movie, like attempting again, like another run at it. Okay.
Right.
So I also have an idea for a Zelda.
Go.
And it's very different from yours, although there's little elements that you can tell that we have a same sense of, like, we've known each other for too long. Our own media consumption's kind of within its own sphere. Yeah. So here's how often the way that I write and create, like, I know structure, I know all the writing structure and how you're supposed to do it. I know how you're supposed to outline, et cetera, et cetera. Usually in a similar way to how you described that trailer, what I do is get a feeling or a visual and then kind of work off of that. And a lot of how I write, and folks who know my fiction, I am a other spicy fiction writer, and I have when I say that, it's not like, oh, little things, like that's how I also jump-started my career. I was hundreds of millions of views on stuff, and I've been asked a lot about my writing or how I do stuff, and this is a long way of setting up that I'll visualize something or see an end goal, and then I kind of work backwards from there and find a starting point, and then I just start it, and I let the characters and the setup then drive, knowing just in the distance there is a kernel of an idea that I have that I'm not necessarily attached to, but that I want to get there with these characters. And what that does is it creates a character-driven plotline as opposed to a story beat forced plot line, because the story beats in my pieces don't happen unless the character themselves are making it happen, kind of. So there's a level of, like, I see the domino at the far end and I'm having to set up the dominoes to get there, and then hopefully when I'm done setting up my first domino to my last domino, I can then tap the front and it goes there, right? So there's a lot of free form flow for when I write something. So maybe I won't say the end of my idea. We'll get to that, but I'll tell you that's this end piece. When I eventually get to that, is why the rest of this was structured the way that it was. So in a similar vein, at some point I was thinking, and I was like, what hasn't really been done in this world? I am with you, and this is funny hearing your pitch first, because I'm with you on a couple ideas that I love, not necessarily because I'm like, that's a part of the Zelda universe and it has to be that way, but because they're elements I enjoy about the universe and I saw it as kind of a challenge. So for me, right away, I was also like, I don't want to see Link talk. I don't want to see him talk. How can you make that happen? My route however, wasn't making him a dumb brute, which I love your idea because that's genius. Because it also makes sense that your version of Link would like buy a couple things from like a shop owner and then see a bunch of pots and just smash them, and the shop owner basically be like, "What?
Exactly.
Like what the fuck, man?"
Oh my god!
Yeah.
I don't want to get back to mine too much, but there was a moment where in one of the versions of this pitch, at some point, someone hides a ruby in a pot or whatever, and it breaks, and Link sees it, and needs money or whatever, and so for the rest of the movie, almost like a dog that keeps thinking, "Oh, okay, that'll happen." He just breaks every fucking pot because he's just like,
"You gotta be inside,
exactly."
Find the
You
treasure.
totally know what I mean.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
sorry.
that's great. So for me, I was like, well, how can I do that? And I realized that obviously a big part of the Zelda universe is the other creatures and the other races that are there. So my world would be set somewhere far down the line of like Ocarina of Time. Specifically an item that can travel you through time, that's being guarded, et cetera, et cetera. So it is its own separate, like, reiteration or reincarnation of these heroes, just in an alternate kind of somber timeline. And obviously, I love Majora's Mask, so everything kind of feels like almost like a Breath of the Wild, post-apocalyptic kind of feel. Everything feels a bit more like something had happened. Everyone's kind of like barely getting by, and this in a similar way to like Breath of the Wild, very separate. But the idea being, we never really know whether or not Link can talk. We just know that anyone he's actually interacting with are from a different race and they speak a different language.
Oh, yeah, that's okay.
So him running into a Goron or one of the bird folks, it's not, oh, he's choosing to not speak. It's he knows he will not be able to communicate with these folks. So as opposed to other versions of the game where they know each other's language, the concept is like, in this world, these races are so rare and so disconnected from one another. They just know that's a language we'll never understand. We don't understand them. They don't understand each other. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. We're not really a part of that existence, right? Go for it.
So is this because the different races are so separated from each other until recently, or are still so separated from each other, and it's Link going from one to the other? It's the connection, and so that's why people don't speak each other's language?
Yes.
Another question is subtitles or not subtitles?
Subtitles for them, he never ends up speaking.
Right.
Yeah. So later on, the idea for me was like the Goron and the bird person that he eventually teams up with, they can actually talk to each other and they can comment on him and like what he's up to, but he does not understand them. So we basically start the film we start the film with him basically being like a rancher, like he takes care of horses, etc. He's a little bit older. He's kind of like post everything, and again, it's like where the John Wicky kind of thing comes in. You don't really know. You just know he's like obviously some sort of soldier, like baseline soldier. He's on his own. He's existing. He's raising horses. He seems distant. He's like running across the other races on the property. There's a bird person there that like they cross paths. They obviously don't understand each other. Like he's on the outskirts of this whole region. So he's like one of the few people that interacts with these races that are beyond the mountains that he's at the base of, basically. And and can see a B plot line, which is like Zelda incorporated in this kingdom that she's trying to like resuscitate after the fall of like greatness, basically. So you're constantly going back to her and seeing her like preparing for war and knowing like we're already so decimated and barely going along. I can like I've lost so much already. Like this is really a struggle, and that's like that will be happening the whole time. So that's going to connect here soon. Basically, the version of Ganondorf that sweeps through is kind of like a version from Ocarina of Time. It's like a desert raider, like a large army, almost like a mercenary army coming in. And they know they're from a distant land, and they're just like, this entire kingdom is on the downfall. This thing's almost completely collapsed. Post all this war, post all this magic, all that, this is our opportunity to get in there, because we know that of all the things that this place has, it's got basically an Ocarina of Time in there. It's got a powerful object that we want. So there are these raiders that come through, and of course they pass Link. They are also gathering supplies. They're just like burning and pillaging as they go. So without really thinking much on it, they just like come through, destroy his small little collection, but also his house. And then they just like take his horse, take one of his horses that he was really treating very special the whole time. He obviously has some sort of emotional connection to it, etc. And they move on thinking that they've killed him at one point. I also had the idea of like, at that point, the fairy thing comes into play. Like he's on the outskirts of this, right? Magic's kind of this dissolving thing, but he is this obviously brave farmer out there existing. He seems one with nature, that kind of thing. So him being brought back to life via magic like that kind of makes sense. Sure. We kind of established like he's kind-hearted and all of those things. He seems still very gruff and all that. One of the folks that survives is also this bird person that he witnessed the decimation of this as well, right? So they kind of start to team up. So right away they're like, oh, we're both at a loss. Something happened. We can't even communicate with each other. Link is immediately like, goal-oriented, I'm going after them. And you don't know why. You don't know the motivation. You just understand like something about it. And of course you can infer, okay, the horse meant something to him. What's happening there? Ganondorf, his whole group, they break a barrier into the kingdom on the way in because their idea is we'll get inside, we break these magical barriers, it locks us in, and then we can do what we need to do, hold the power, no outside help, etc., etc. Not even thinking or knowing about whatever's going on with Link. So he's now teamed up with a bird person that doesn't really know what's going on, but feels driven to go along with him, almost as like a witness of whatever's happening. We end up incorporating the idea of like a puzzles and a dungeon because he realizes on the way into the barrier, which is like, you see it in like Twilight Princess and all that stuff, right? This is really fun. I like pitching stuff. It was so fun listening to yours, and now I'm like pitching online.
Yeah, this is great.
Yeah, golden big barrier, and he's like, I know they're beyond that. They broke it, so he has to go like get these two new magical items in order to open the barrier so he can get in. Which is how he runs across a Goron, who's also been like, basically this raider group has just like caused many enemies along the way and not really realized it. And so he's just
that makes sense.
Kind of collecting a team as he goes, and they're not really sure what his motivation is. They're starting to pick up on the fact like there's a lot about this guy that we don't like know, get. Like it seems like he's got this magic sword that he probably shouldn't have if he's just a normal soldier, and like like at certain point he seems to almost be like sending messages out to the castle and things like this, right? And
but even though they don't get him or don't understand him, they can tell he's so determined and that he's so compelling that there's something that keeps them like sticking with him.
Yeah. Something about this guy is like, we're part of something here, whatever that is. Meanwhile, go for it.
In my head, I'm starting to kind of see it as Tom Hardy from the first few minutes of Mad Max, where it's not that he can't speak, it's just he's like choosing not to, but he's got the reactions of somebody intelligent, and he's like making wry looks, and he's suggesting with pointing, and he's kind of ahead of everybody else, and so they realize that he's smart even though they can't communicate with him.
Yeah,
that's good.
And a lot of the humor would derive from that, whether that's them commenting on him or it's them trying to communicate certain things, which again is kind of a commentary.
You even have two of them get into an argument about what to do next, and then while they're arguing, Link just starts doing something, and they realize that his idea is better than both.
And they're like, all right, we'll just keep going. And again, he's smart enough. My version of Link is smart, so he knows like I have no reason to try and talk out loud. I'm just going to use my simple communication and everything to do what's happening, basically. And so meanwhile, like Zelda is being with her band trying to like prevent the next stage of Ganondorf taking over, etc. You start to learn kind of this history on where he came from and how maybe he was involved in the destruction in the first place, and it's why he regrouped and came back. Maybe he was someone involved on the side of like a soldier like Link as well. And so you start to get start from there. You start to get these pieces of like maybe he may not have known Link, but he like was involved maybe in the same army. And the more you get it, you start to hear these references of Ganondorf dropping this idea of like this scandal that happened with Zelda as well. Like the idea of something that caused all these problems and issues and all that jazz. And eventually, and I'll skip all these other little visual pieces I have, Link gets to that point and they're having like a major confrontation. And yeah, you realize at the end of the day, he's really just there for the horse. And that's when he finally crosses paths with Zelda and her entire plot line. And she's like, you're here. And you realize Zelda is his wife, like ex-wife, basically. And she has noticed along the lines that this horse that he was in pursuit of, that he's now grabbing and about to leave, and I'm seeing these visuals in my head of like, suddenly they're connected, and as opposed to being like, who are you, and all that, it's like, oh, fuck, they have this massive history. And you basically learn like they lost a daughter in the process of this war that happened, and it split them up because often you can't survive something like that. And the horse belonged to the daughter, basically. And so now he's like, I've got what I've come for. He's not even saying words. Like these are unspoken because he doesn't want to talk to her either, right? Like this is, again, like an idea derived from restriction of, well, how would you communicate that?
And there's something very Chinese storytelling in this, that when they lock eyes or when Zelda sees him, you could do a lot there. You could almost stop the narrative and show the backstory visually without words. Lets everybody understand the things that you just said with words, and then you almost stop the narrative and kind of fill it in and then come back, but they still haven't spoken, and then him leaving in the way with cinematic language to be like, I've gotten what I've gotten and I'm like, you don't have to have words. It works great.
Yeah. So that's a huge, that would be great. Yeah, do the flashback and build. And you've kind of established within Ganondorf's conversation, like, oh my God, that's who he's been talking about this whole time. Because he's referring to it almost as like a husband that was dead, or like, you know, the kid being gone, all of those things.
Sure, and you can frame it when Ganondorf is talking, like he's talking about the dead king, or somebody that's not Link or whatever, and then everyone's on the same page at this point. Yeah, okay, great. That's good. Yeah.
So that reveal is also at the point where like his companions and stuff kind of watch him decide to, that's what he came for. That's like all he wanted was the daughter's horse. He's obviously way more going on than we've ever seen. And he has a choice now, as most protagonists do, where it's like, do you leave or do you stay and stop whatever is happening from happening, which is Ganondorf getting in and controlling time, basically. And she just gets him to do it by basically calling on, look, it's very simple. The dialogue is easy, but it's just basically like, I'm cashing this in. Like I need you to do this with me. Right. So they go off, and it gets to a point where it's like, obviously like the classic Zelda games where they're all confronting and they're realizing like they all do have that, like the Triforce and the power and all of that stuff. And that's what this, like, it's this version in my mind is like a reincarnation of like the saddest outcomes of this power, like Ganondorf's barely scraping by and having to be a raider, and Zelda's running a kingdom that's almost dead, and Link is sad and broken and all of these things, and
Link is Nicolas Cage from Pig, just like off on his own. Yeah.
So it's just like we could have been heroes, but for our reincarnation, they just never aligned, and so. This visual, and this is where I'm like, oh, I love the visual of this, is that, you know, they get to that point where they're in that room and they've just been guarding the Ocarina of Time. They don't even really know, you know, what it is. It's been like whatever. And Link gets a hold of it. And at first you start to realize like he uses it and you're like, that's, oh shit. he is not supposed to do that. It's kind of been established. Like you can't go back in time. You can't do any of this stuff. Like it will ruin all of these things and all that stuff. And so again, that secondary twist is he uses it. The rest of the world disappears around him, and he just goes to and calls upon the moment he wants to witness one last time, which is basically just like saying goodbye to his daughter. And he goes back and he's like, goodbye, I'm sorry, basically. And then returns back to the normal state and just fucking destroys it. Like, just destroys the magical artifact, like, ruins the whole thing, and then just, like, ends him. And that's it. Like, that's all he really wanted was, like, that last connection to the person he lost. He also understood, like, I can't bring her back, but I can, at least in this process, say goodbye. I already got what I wanted. It's the horse. That was the connection. I have to kind of live with the reality of what we did. Just they're, like, Zelda and him are both kind of accepting of, like, this was our fate as it was, and that's just the way it's going to have to be. And he goes back to his farm, and if you want to do, like, the cheesy kind of movie ending thing, he would now be, like, with him and his companions now are kind of, like, living on this farm, existing on this farm together. Sure. Yeah. And I like that idea of, like, the companions and stuff too, because they would also be kind of unique and people aren't used to that. And so the idea of this strange, quiet, somber ex-soldier with these little wacky, like, nobody can communicate with each other. And so that visual though, I saw this idea of, like, I liked the idea of Ganondorf thinking, like, oh, you asshole, you're taking the power for yourself. And the twist, of course, is like, no, I'm just using. So this visual I saw of, like, saying goodbye to someone and then coming back and then, like, destroying that and being like, I got it. I got what I needed. And I know
So you might already have this part plotted out, but because you haven't said so, I want to take a stab at something which I like, which you made me think of, which is, so he goes back, he uses the object, he says goodbye to his daughter. Is that, are you like, that's the only, he says one thing basically in the entire movie?
Yeah, if it was that, and the thought is he either says goodbye or I love you, which is just simple.
Right.
Or
nothing complicated.
If when I make this, I would test out the idea of just like a hug or just seeing her, and then coming back.
Or you could even have, this isn't what I was going for, or you could even have in Zelda's dialogue with Ganondorf or with somebody else, you could have a thing where the guy that you think is the king that turns out to be Link never said, like, I don't know, who cares? Just like nice hair or whatever. And then you have that be the thing that Link says. And so he gives her a compliment that he never gave her, something like that. Really meaningful to him. And isn't as meaningful to her, the daughter, in this time vortex, but she can still somehow sense how important it is or whatever. Okay, so anyway, so he does that. He blows it up. Only line he says, great, love it. And then I like the idea of him coming back and everything being ruined and Ganon just standing there for a really long time and then just leaving. Like, don't kill him.
Yeah.
Like, you, or anything like that. He was here to collect this thing, and if he did, he can control the world, and you don't do anything else with him. Just have that thing break right as Link uses it and comes back, and Ganon just, like, watches it disintegrate and then just leaves.
Oh, I love that.
Like, he just
walks away. And then in my head, what I saw was Link doing this also destroys the kingdom that Zelda was trying to maintain. So it, like, fucks with Ganon's army, but it leaves Ganon alive, and it fucks with the Hyrule that she's trying to keep together, but leaves her alive. And so you kind of have this sense of this thing is also like Galadriel's ring or whatever, the one thing keeping Lorien intact. And so now that it's gone, her kingdom that she's been failing to keep alive is now absolutely going to diminish. But Link doesn't care, and you have this cold moment with him of, like, I've got my horse, I said goodbye, this is all that matters. You two have been doing some fucking bullshit politics. Like, you have to do all this with looks, but you two have been doing some fucking bullshit politics, and now you've both lost. So how does that feel? Whatever, right? And then he leaves, and then, like you said, you then cut to this Hollywood ending. Like you could do something else, but you were talking about that. And then in my head, what I saw was the Zora and the Goron and the Birdo, I forget their names, but
Yeah, me too.
the people that he's accrued through this movie, it's just back at his house, and like at the beginning of the movie, Ganon and his army destroys his house, burns it down, kills his horses, steals the horse, stabs him in the heart, whatever. He comes back to life for the fairy or whatever, but his home is ruined. And so then you come back at the very end as like a little coda, as like a little denouement epilogue, and his house has been rebuilt, but it's a little bit bigger now, and it's got little extensions that you can tell are for the people from the different races, and he's whittling or something like that, and everyone's talking and everybody's having a good time, and he's not saying anything, because even though maybe he's even starting to understand, you cinematically you can get away with that. And then he's cooking dinner or he's whittling or whatever. And then everybody's talking and it's the nice happy ending. And then he just looks up, and in the distance, you see a very simply dressed Zelda just like slowly making her way toward the house. Like, don't explain what that is.
Yeah.
Something like that.
That's great too. Cause the idea of her and that kind of plot line is clinging on to like failure out of devotion, right? Out of like,
well, it's grief, right?
Yeah.
Because she's trying to keep her kingdom together because she failed to keep her daughter alive, right? And so
so she was unwilling to be like, and implied kind of like links, like we need to just let this go, come with
and move
me,
on.
And she couldn't do it. Yeah, and so
then at the end, even though she's mad at him, then like a couple of weeks go by, and all of a sudden she realizes. I mean, you have to put this together as the audience. She kind of realizes that in a way he freed her or whatever. So you just get him looking up, and you just kind of see her in the distance, and you know it's her, and just a look crosses over his face that you can't really read, but it's probably hopeful, but it might be conflict, whatever. And then you just kind of like end it.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, so that's just floated around in my head. It's never really been written down. I sometimes do the thing, which I'm sure you do, where I'm like, I play like music and just let it sit and like visualize. And that, honestly, that part of the creative process is almost as fun as actually writing it down. But if I were to do this,
it's more fun. Writing it down is hard.
Yeah, exactly. Like
so
this is what's fun
Oh my
about
God.
doing it this way with you, because it flows out of my brain in the same way that when I write, I sit down and I just go. And the only reason I was able to do that from like beginning to end is because I just let it happen kind of naturally. Like there was even little things I changed or discovered or made up on the way as I said that. But this is what's fun about like pitching ideas and concepts like this, like because those were two very different, like similar little ideas.
It's cool the ways they were similar. Like it was cool the way they were similar. I liked it, but they're very different takes.
Yeah,
but I think both are good, and I think both are incredibly better than what we're gonna get.
Yeah, I don't even know. I don't even want to predict what it's gonna do. I don't know.
I'm gonna predict. I mean, like my prediction is just bleak. It's just going to be this combination of like member berries and CW stuff. They've cast it so oddly that it's. The nice thing about both of the pitches that we just did is they're like honoring the source material, and like there's a real reverence for it. Clearly we both people that came up with these pitches love Zelda, but they're not beholden to what is expected of a Zelda movie. And so like you get a real swing, you get an actual swing as opposed to doing something safe like that. Speaking of Star Wars, like the Solo movie is so bad because it's just a workman-like director. Ron Howard's very good, but he reshot 70% of that movie because the thing they were doing was a big swing, and Kathleen Kennedy got cold feet and fired their asses. But they were going to have a swing, and I think it would have been good. And this just safety and stuff. And that Mario movie felt so, the cartoon one that just came out, it felt so safe to me. And the 90s one is a train wreck, but my God, like I remember that movie because it was doing something, and both of these ideas do something.
That word you just said, safe, I guess that's the way I think that's the biggest indicator, probably what we're going to see. It's like they played it safe with Mario, and they play it safe with this. So we won't
Endgame.
we won't get
like they just
get dumb Link Sisuing people to death, unfortunately.
Oh, I'm so sad about it. Oh my God. I could just, do you remember, did you see the trailer for Sisu?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else, if you're inclined, go watch the trailer for Sisu if you haven't seen it. And it's just a badass trailer. And then right at the very end, the word Sisu appears on screen and it's part of the music, but it's just somebody going Sisu, and it makes me laugh so hard. And so not until then, of course, but after Sisu came out, I thought about that Link jump thing and the whole thing came out. But then as soon as you just have somebody say, just almost like those old 80s, 90s cartoon commercials of Zelda stuff. Like just, and if you look at the history of Zelda, like their advertising, and they've tried weird stuff. Nintendo tries weird stuff.
Yeah.
Zelda and Mario are great examples of like, man, do they not rest on their laurels? They're always innovating. They're always making something different. They're always, who cares about canon?
Yeah.
Who cares about continuity? Who cares about play style? We're going to make a whole new thing. We're going to make a whole new kind of game, like from scratch. Like there's never been a game like this before. And now that Mario movie is just like paint by numbers, and this thing is going to be so bad. I would love it if it's not bad. I want every movie to be good. I want every movie to be good. Because every movie that gets made is a minor miracle. The only movies I care to rag on anymore are ones that have budgets of over $100 million. Mm-hmm. Once you have a Marvel budget, then I feel compelled, but also permitted to just fucking savagely shit on a movie. But anything before that, mid-budget movies, indie movies, they're all miracles. I want every movie to be good, but this movie is going to be bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I go into it. I do this every movie. I sit down. I'm going to be like, I'm going to clear my expectations. I'm going to give this movie a chance. If this movie surprises me, I will go with it. There have been movies I thought I was going to hate, and then it turns out I like them because I gave it a chance. I will give it a chance, but I will eat this if I sit down and give it a chance and it's good at all. It just looks, oh God.
We know what it's going to be. Well, that was the end of our incredibly amazing movie discussion. So those were our Zelda pitches. Those were our opinions on Zelda. I didn't even do like an intro or a start. We just like went right into it.
Well, whatever we were supposed to talk about, like that just was a thing.
That was just a thing. So that is like 2 videos, which is normal for us. Oh, wait, let me just really quick. Hey everybody, it's AlsoAshley. Welcome to my YouTube channel. There we go. I got an intro in there now.
Like and subscribe.
Yeah. Anyway, if you all enjoyed our movie discussions and stuff, obviously we enjoyed doing those pitches back and forth and talking writing. So if you want to hear more about that, let us know. Like if you want to hear this chunk will be for the other video. If you want to hear Tyler's whole Obi-Wan pitch, let us know. And if you want to hear more stuff like this, let us know. We'd love to talk more film stuff. As we've established, that's where we live. And as I reveal more and more, that's where I used to live. Yeah.
And then we've been talking, you and I have been talking about for a while, the concept of just doing a different YouTube channel where we do this, where we talk about movie pitches that we've done or we had, or just like playing games with the ideas of pitches or coming up with pitches on the spot, or just like some pitch oriented show. Maybe people will be interested in that. I don't know.
Yeah.
That could be a thing we do, but yeah, this was fun. I really liked hearing your pitch. Like I've had mine in my head for so long, but like yours gives me a lot to think about.
Yeah.
Like, that's good.
Yeah. That's what I like about yours. It was so dramatically different than what was in my brain that I just went with it. And I was like, this is a blast just seeing that in my head. But yeah,
so fun.
Everyone be sure to share, like, subscribe, get me out there, share me around. That would be very helpful. Until next time, be hot, resist fascism.
Be hot, resist fascism. Hell yeah.
Yeah. I've also realized that it's kind of a bad thing is like, as I become better at the femme voice, I'm trying to find a balance because I also feel like I'm starting to do that more often, California, because it gives like a naturally feminine tone, and so I'm trying. You want to take the 405. You don't want to take the 309. Yeah, like that whole field.
Yeah. You do that and then it works. I do that and I start sounding like lumpy space bass. Well, I'll take it.